E-4 Media and RA Design House present E-4 Sports, sports through the eyes of veterans, with your hosts, good old JR and Ferocious Phil. We have a great show for y'all today. The eve of Super Bowl weekend. Now, even though personally I would love to talk about how the Rowdy Ronda Rousey just became my favorite WWE superstar this past Sunday, today is all about that pigskin. We're going to talk NFL honors, the state of the NFL, the future of Thursday Night Football, and yes, of course, we will talk Super Bowl, including our picks. Phil, just last year, you and me partook in the celebration downtown Houston. How you feeling this year?
Once again, end of a football season, so we got the last game of the season. We're going to be going into free agency, the draft, the combine, all that good stuff. That, of course, is another show, so we'll hit that when the time comes. However, we're going to be looking at a pretty good matchup here, and yeah, last year I had a blast participating in all the activities that the league had set up for the Super Bowl experience.
I'm still trying to get a little hyped for this game. I don't really care, honestly, who wins or loses. I'm not a fan of the Eagles, but I don't want Brady getting his sixth win. The Patriots fans are already unbearable enough. Last thing we need is for them to tie the Pittsburgh Steelers in Super Bowl win. But what's interesting is I was talking to a friend the other day, and if you look, which to me, records need to look this way. The game has changed since free agency. So yes, New England has been on a roll with free agency. The Steelers won all their championships without the free agency. So could we split up and look at the Patriots and say, wait a second, they can't compare with the Steelers and their amount of wins because the era is totally different.
Because they keep feeding free agents into the league, or you're saying they're signing free agents because they don't sign that many free agents. They sign a handful of free agents, and frankly, I mean, the Patriots, if they really wanted to, I mean, they didn't really sign a whole lot of receivers or anything like that. The only one of any kind of significance would be Philip Dorsett that they got from the Colts.
But the whole style of football and league management and all of football has changed with free agency.
So you're saying there's a free agent era as opposed to a non-free agent era.
Exactly. Could we split the comparison up like that?
And before y'all get in an uproar about me saying the only receiver that they got of any significance being Philip Dorsett, we're not forgetting about Brandon Cooks. So
we'll go into Brandon Cooks a little later because the man can ball. But yeah, so could you split that comparison up? Like, let's say they win. Let's say they win, they get their sixth Super Bowl, quote-unquote sixth Super Bowl. They got them with free agency. The Steelers, I think, have one with free agency, and the others were before free agency.
Well, they won a number of their Super Bowls back in the 70s when they had the steel curtain. And
okay, so their dynasty is different. This one's built in the free agency era, free agency market.
You're talking two different styles of football altogether to start with anyway. I mean, back in the 70s, you can't even compare the game to what it is today. Much rougher, a lot more contact. You didn't have the, if you took more than a step and a half and you touched the quarterback, you're getting a flag. Didn't happen. I mean, there were all types of things going on at that point that weren't going on now. I mean, the contact between the receivers and the defensive backs, I mean, hell, you'd have people getting clotheslined going across the middle. So compared to today's, it's a lot more offense-oriented as opposed to just letting them play and beating the tar out of each other.
Well, let's continue talking a little bit offense. ESPN has their poll up for the NFL honors tomorrow night. And Offensive Player of the Year, they are giving it to Todd Gurley, the running back of the Los Angeles Rams. Todd Gurley is leading Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Carson Wentz, Le'Veon Bell, and Alvin Kamara on the ballot. I can kind of agree with it. Sean McVay's offense was incredible this year, and Todd Gurley was a huge cog in that machine. and what the Rams have done and what this young coach has been able to do is extraordinary. I think he should be going for MVP, but we'll talk about MVP a little later.
McVay did a hell of a job with the Rams this year. And what do you think? Do you think Gurley is league MVP?
I'm tired of seeing quarterbacks getting it. I would love to see a running back. When was the last time someone besides quarterback didn't?
2012 was the last time a running back won the MVP, the league MVP, and that was Adrian Peterson with the Vikings. However, the current trend is you've had the last 2 years, you've had the league MVP also be the offensive player of the year. And yeah, that just seems to be the going trend. You had Matt Ryan and Cam Newton. Now, the year prior to that, 2014, Aaron Rodgers was the MVP and DeMarco Murray was the offensive player of the year. So there is you can make an argument either way. However, the usual trend tends to be the offensive player of the year is also the league MVP, and 3 of the last 4 years that's been the case. Peyton Manning being the other one in 2013.
Yeah, I'd like to see Todd Gurley get the top prize, but I don't think he's going to, and so I do like the pick for him getting Offensive Player of the Year.
I'm not opposed to him winning the Player of the Year. He did a bang-up job this year. He had a hell of a season for the Rams, and like you said, part of that new offense that Sean McVay installed in Los Angeles with the Rams.
I mean,
plus you had the great quarterback play with
Goff,
too.
That's what I was about to say is, they had Gurley. They always knew what Gurley could be capable of doing. And now that he is in the potential that people saw him having the potential of having, yes, very repetitious, but I'm sticking with it, he opened up the passing game for Goff to be able to go off like he did this year. No one expected Goff. After his debut, nobody expected Goff to have the season he had, and I think that is honestly help with the running game in Todd Gurley.
The same could be said about Carson Wentz, too.
Yes.
Second-year quarterback, yes. Same draft class as Goff. And also you had Antonio Brown, who, if he had not been injured in, week 14 or 15, where would that have played in the voting for Offensive Player of the Year? When's the last time a wide receiver? It's been a very long time since a wide receiver has won Offensive Player of the Year. But Carson Wentz, if he did not get injured, and this is kind of the same argument you could have had last year with Brady. Brady obviously had the suspension, so he had to sit out 4 games. And Carson Wentz wound up missing the last 3 games of the season. But I think Carson Wentz would have been a very strong candidate for league MVP and Offensive Player of the Year.
I can definitely agree with that. Let's go to the other side of the ball, and let's go with Defensive Player of the Year. Now, ESPN, they have Calais Campbell, defensive end from the Jacksonville Jaguars, winning the award. Behind him, another great player, Aaron Donald, Cameron Jordan, Bobby Wagner, Chandler Jones, Cameron Hayward, Calais Campbell's teammate, Jalen Ramsey, Fletcher Cox, and DeMarcus Lawrence. Calais Campbell didn't run away with it, but he got a total of 28 votes, and Aaron Donald got a total of 26 votes. Both tied for first round. What do you think about this one? I think it's a very good one. Calais Campbell collected 14.5 sacks this year.
Calais Campbell was a beast this year, and that's not taking anything away from Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald had a great season also.
Yes, he did.
Jalen Ramsey, your time will come, sir. You have great potential in this league as a defensive back.
Real quick, side note on Jalen Ramsey. When they first got him, I was not fearful. I'm like, I'm not that fearful of him. Now, after this year, as a Texans fan, I am fearful of the man. And you put him with defensive end like Calais Campbell, then you got Boye on the other side.
Miles Jack,
Flowers.
And don't forget Paluzny.
How could I forget Paluzny?
You got a very good defense. Jacksonville's done a very good job drafting the last couple of years, especially as far as making key free agent signings and just drafting defensively.
Yeah, now they just need to look at a quarterback.
But they're sticking with Bortles next year.
Yes, they are.
At least according to reports.
I still think maybe they get a free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear a Kirk Cousins rumor.
Not going to happen. I think the top two teams for Kirk Cousins right now are probably
Jets.
Denver and Arizona.
Really?
Yeah.
Denver I can understand. Absolutely understand. They have not done well with Lynch, Simeon, and God knows you'll never get anything out of Osweiler.
Now there is
Arizona, I could understand it because not only are you bringing in a new quarterback, but you're also bringing in a new coach. So that would work very well because they're both new, so they can both mold together. That's actually not a bad idea.
Well, that's actually that's the most common rumor going around is that he winds up in Arizona. However, there is a crazy rumor out there about will San Francisco keep Garoppolo, which. Yeah, this like I said, this is another show. I don't want to get too far into this, but that's just crazy to not even consider keeping Garoppolo because he did very well for San Fran when they traded for him.
One award that we weren't going to talk about, but I really want to talk about is Comeback Player of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year, if y'all don't know, is when a player gets taken out the season prior and on IR the next year, how well did they come back? And I agree with how ESPN has it. ESPN has Keenan Allen, the wide receiver from the Los Angeles Chargers, winning it. I will agree with that, but ACL is a horrible injury to come back from, especially if you're a speedster. This coming from someone who has two very bad injured knees, thank you, the Army. You don't realize how much your knees are needed until you can't use them or it's in constant pain while using them. It is the only thing that is holding up your body besides your ankles. The knees move everything. So for him to be able to come back, finish fourth in the league in receptions with 102 and third in receiving yards with 1,393, that's incredible. He also played all 16 games for the first time in his career.
Yeah, he's not exactly known for being a full season player.
Exactly. So to come back from ACL, change your whole mentality, and be able to play the whole season, that's fantastic.
Now, I do got to say, though, just real quick, as far as Gronkowski coming in second and Earl Thomas is a great candidate there also.
Yes.
But I do agree with you. I think Keenan Allen winds up taking this. Now, how bad is it? Gronkowski's on here again. Once again, another guy who can't stay healthy. How many, he already won this once in 2014.
Yes.
So, how many previous winners of this are multiple winners? And there are actually a couple of guys that have won this multiple times, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. But it also speaks about the character of the player and what they're willing to go through to get back and play the game.
One of the interesting players that is on this list is Case Keenum. Case Keenum has one first-place vote. He has a total of 4 votes. Case Keenum, he's not going to win it. I just like bringing up his name because I am a U of H boy, and he did a great job with the Vikings. So I just wanted to throw out some support for Mr. Case Keenum. And back to the other side of the ball, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I like the list. They got Marshawn Lattimore, cornerback for the New Orleans Saints, winning it. He got all 12 first-place votes, so he was unanimous. Tre'Davious White came in second, the cornerback from the Bills. No first-place votes, of course. He got a total of 17. Marshawn got 36. I agree with that pick. New Orleans defense has been a laughing stock for the last few years.
Well, they've needed a lot of help.
Exactly.
Oh, they've needed help on all parts of the defense,
aspects of the defense.
But
yes.
they've gone to address that through the draft, and Lattimore is a really good pick, and should be the defensive rookie of the year. And JJ's younger brother, TJ,
came in third.
is going to wind up doing pretty good too. I mean, he's going to be vying for this at least defensive player of the year in the upcoming seasons.
Before we get to the offensive rookie of the year, another name that I wanted to that's on this list is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett would have a much better standing if he could stay healthy. Is he a injury risk?
Oh, is this going to be the same argument that I presented to you with Jadeveon Clowney?
It could be.
I don't think he's injury prone. I think he had a couple of little bruises and bumps from training camp that he had to play through, but he wasn't coming in injured as much as Jadeveon Clowney was when he entered the league. I think Myles Garrett will wind up proving to be a decent pick. Is he going to be the huge superstar that everyone thinks? That's yet to.
All the players we've talked about can be said or where they are today because of the leadership they are given by the head of their team. Let's talk Coach of the Year. List is pretty small. You've got Sean McVay from the Los Angeles Rams, Doug Peterson from the Philadelphia Eagles, Mike Zimmer from the Vikings, Doug Marrone from the Jaguars, and Sean McDermott from the Bills. Sean McVay should run away with it. With the culture he has changed in L.A., with the age he's the youngest coach in the NFL. It's hard not to root for him with this award. I mean, one of my biggest gripes was the fact that L.A., well, it was St. Louis, and then they moved to L.A., still had him for a little while, finally kicked. And I'm talking about Jeff Fisher. The culture Jeff Fisher had in that locker room was atrocious. They couldn't do anything. But that was always Jeff Fisher. He had atrocious locker rooms. I never liked the man, even when he was the coach of the Houston Oilers.
What about when he played for the Bears?
I wish his head would have been torn off. Because then I would have never had to deal with him. But, yes, Sean McVay should. I mean, I like Doug Peterson with how he was able to turn Philadelphia around from last year, being last in the division, to number one in the conference.
I like what Peterson did this year. I think McVay did a fantastic job, especially coming in, just all the naysayers, oh, he's the youngest guy coming in and all this. But he came in, showed them he knows what he's doing, and turned that team around. I mean, the Rams, both sides of the ball, the Rams improved dramatically. And Peterson did a heck of a job, too, with the Eagles, and especially, got a second-year quarterback in there as a legit potential MVP candidate for how many years to come.
I agree, but then you also look at, for me, Mike Zimmer and Doug Marrone. Mike Zimmer, for what he was able to bring Case Keenum out of. Case Keenum has been a journeyman quarterback. I mean, he was on Houston's roster on 2 different occasions.
He was also on the Rams roster.
Yes, he's a journeyman. So to be able to see what Zimmer was able to pull out of him and what he was able to do and the risk. I mean, finally, that's why we liked him so much at U of H as a Cougar. The risk he would take down the field. And we saw that in the championship game against the Saints. The risk he took to go to Diggs. Seconds left in the game. Yeah, he kind of had to, but he did it with such confidence. And Zimmer, I think, brought that out of him.
Well, the knock on Case Keenum is essentially the same knock that you've had on multiple quarterbacks. And I'll put it this way. It's basically Doug Flutie, Drew Brees syndrome. He's barely 6 foot tall.
Yes.
And that's going to be a knock on any quarterback coming out. You got Russell Wilson, who's barely, he's just over 6 foot. But you got these guys coming out time and time again that are basically, they got a chip on their shoulder and they want to prove themselves. Yep. And Keenum definitely took advantage of his situation. And, all things considered, you got Sam Bradford and you got Teddy Bridgewater sitting behind you, who you can pick their brains and hopefully be able to, garner some information from them get get tips, get educated on what it takes to be a quarterback, at least from Bradford. Bridgewater really hasn't had that opportunity yet. I mean, unfortunately, the kid's been injured basically his first 2 years, and hope maybe next year we get to see what he can do.
I'm going to leave the topic on this, talking about the quarterbacks that Zimmer has. They're all up for free agency next year. Every one of them is about to be unrestricted free agent.
Who do you keep?
I read a story today that technically what Minnesota can try to do is toll Bridgewater. Toll meaning because he got injured and he didn't play the time required in his contract, they can prevent him from becoming a free agent.
Sure, you have to have a certain number of games played in order to become a UFA, unrestricted free agent. That's not to say that he would not be a transitional free agent.
Yes.
Or a restricted free agent, if
Yes.
you will, where they could put a transition tag on him. I think they have a legit case to pull the toll on him because, like we just said, he hasn't been. I don't even know how many games total Teddy Bridgewater's played, but it's barely a season's worth of games.
And so, with that being said, I could see them wait on Bridgewater to see what Case Keenum's going to be asking for. Sam Bradford, he's going to end up making a roster. I think his career's done. It's the same shoulder over and over again. And I said this even when he was at Oklahoma. The man never learned how to take a sack. Every time you see him get sacked from the side, he always falls on the throwing shoulder. It's like he never learned how to twist while getting hit and land on his back. Is he going to make a team? He is. Do I see him finishing a season? No, I don't. One of my most favorite awards is one that's sometimes overlooked, and that would be the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award. The Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award recognizes a certain NFL player for his excellence on and off the field. Now, this award was established in 1970. It was renamed in 1999 after the late Hall of Fame Chicago Bears running back Walter Payton. Each team nominates one player who has had a significant positive impact on his community. It is then voted down to 3 finalists. This year, the 3 finalists happen to be Houston Texans linebacker J.J. Watt, Carolina Panthers tight end Greg Olsen, and Baltimore Ravens tight end Benjamin Watson. Greg Olsen has a organization, or I should say a foundation, called the Greg Olsen Foundation. And the foundation focuses on cancer research and education programming. He and his wife, Kara, founded the Heart Test Yard Fund in 2013. Benjamin Watson has a foundation called One More Foundation. It is a foundation that gives money to other charitable foundations and programs. Another thing Watson is big on is trying to end the scourge of sex trafficking throughout the Middle East, Dominican Republic. And then we have the Houston Texan, J.J. Watt. Everybody I know has heard J.J. Watt, who was able to get over $35 million within 19 days of Hurricane Harvey. All he wanted to do was get $250,000. And I think he put up
2 weeks? I think he wanted to say 250,000.
He wanted 200,000, and instead of getting 200,000, he got 200,000 people to donate and raised approximately it was over $37 million for hurricane relief, which was insane.
Well, originally it was 100,000. And then it moved up to 200,000. Then it moved up to 250,000. And then it was kind of just open for donations, and it ended at 37 million.
And JJ himself matched the first $100,000
Yes, he did.
that was donated to the JJ Watt Foundation.
The other foundations are great. And JJ actually just a month and a half ago gave that money out to 4 different charities. And he's saving the other $4 million to find out how the first original money was spent. I think JJ runs away with it.
He should. It was unbelievable what he was able to do in Houston, and so unselfish. I saw an interview with him today on the NFL Network, and this man is humble beyond, what you can imagine. I mean, the man thanked the city of Houston for basically supporting him as since he's been drafted to the Texans. And I'm pretty sure that the city of Houston would gladly thank J.J. Watt for all that he's done for the city.
Yes. Yes, we would. So that was the Walter Payton. And now, the one everybody's been clamoring about. All the
What would that
listeners
be?
have been waiting to hear. And that is the NFL MVP.
What's that?
The most valuable player. And ladies and gentlemen, that's as happy as I'm going to be talking about the MVP. Because sadly, as we talked earlier, it looks more and more like a quarterback award. And seeing how Carson Wentz was not able to complete the whole season, that means it falls into one person's hands. And sadly, that is Tom Brady.
Mr. Bunchen. Now, I will say this much. If Carson Wentz had not been injured, and, here we go with the, big if word. However, if Carson Wentz had not been injured, I think Carson Wentz would have won this award flat out.
Deservingly so. Deservingly so. I would like to talk more about Tom Brady right now, but we will when we talk about the Super Bowl matchup. This past Thursday, the 31st, Mr. Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, delivered his State of the League address. One quick thing I'd like to say about what Goodell did was Goodell tried to provide hope for some discouraged Giants fans everywhere by saying the Eagles are a great example of how quickly things can change in the NFL. They went worst to first in 2017, winning the NFC East a season after finishing in last place. They represent hope and are a symbol for fans of teams that had a tough year. Anything is possible, and the Eagles are proof of that. Do you agree with that, Phil? I mean, in a way, I guess I can, but the Eagles last year weren't as bad as the Giants. The Eagles were 7-9 last year to a 13-3 this year. That's hard for the Giants. The Giants went 3-13, fired their coach and their GM. So they're coming in with new management styles. They may be coming in with a rookie quarterback. Do you think Goodell's just blowing smoke up people's butts?
I think I think the Giants will definitely draft a quarterback, but I still think you're going to have Eli starting. They're going to groom somebody at least.
Well, that's no doubt. But do you agree with Goodell saying the Giants can be basically the Eagles of this year?
It's been proven before. It's definitely possible, but once again, that's a big turnaround also. And the Giants, I don't think are that bad off. I think you had a lot of dysfunction in the coaching, as far as the coaching of the Giants last year, and it could be, maybe it's going to be that simple. It's entirely possible. We've seen teams go from last to first in a season. So is it possible? Sure. And of course, being the fact that we're living in Houston, we're living in Southern Texas, anything's better than the Cowboys.
But actually, I was just thinking about that while you were talking. The Giants are in a division that now resembles more of what the AFC South was looked at. You've got the Redskins, who I don't think made that big of an upgrade with Alex Smith. Of course, we all knew they weren't going to franchise Cousins again. But I like Cousins more than I do Alex Smith. I think he has more upside. I think Alex Smith has more of a downside now.
I don't think there's a chance that Alex Smith,
Yeah, I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be hurting for money. He's going to get a very nice check.
He's going to get
and I think it's going to be deserving.
Now, Alex Smith, I mean, you're talking about a 34-year-old quarterback who Washington has already agreed to extend for 4 years.
$94 million with a guarantee of 71.
$71 million guaranteed. Man, set for he just set his family up for life. But do you
It was really Kareem Hunt that did it this year for his team, but
it's Tyreek Hill, you got Travis Kelce.
The running game, in other words.
He's got a great receiving core in Kansas City, whereas in Washington, I think it's questionable. You got a tight end who can't stay healthy.
One of their best receivers is actually going to leave. I don't see Tyra Pryor sticking around there.
No. And for that matter, their running game is questionable too. I think Smith is going into a very strange situation in Washington. I think they're in a transitional stage right now. We're going to have to see what they do in free agency and the draft. But if I'm on the Washington Redskins, I'm not unhappy that Alex Smith is my quarterback. However, am I dancing in the streets and carrying on? No, not necessarily. Alex Smith is a tough quarterback, and he can do the job. I know that there's no way Washington was going to be able to re-sign Cousins. No. Cousins is as good as gone.
Oh, absolutely. So I think the Giants have a chance to turn it around with the division they're in. I don't think they are. They have a chance. I just don't think they are. Goodell was asked if he was satisfied with the level of officiating. Quote, "I'm never satisfied. We can always get better. I think our officiating is outstanding. I believe with technology the way it is, we see things now we never saw even 10 years ago. And what makes their job even harder, but I think they're extraordinary professionals. I will tell you that I think a lot of focus for us in the offseason will be the rule book." Unquote. Now, when it comes to the rule book, Phil, I believe the biggest issue is the no catch rule.
Well, I think they need to define what a catch is, and that's the biggest issue going into this, is defining what is a catch. Is it still a catch is it a catch when you catch it and you go to the ground? Is it you have to get up from the ground, controlling the ball? There's all these little nuances that they need to work out and figure out what they're going to do. You had the Des Bryant catch a couple of years ago that should have been a catch, but it was
Megatron Calvin Johnson the year before that. You had this past year with Jesse James in the Patriot game.
There's been a ton of catches that they rule one way one time, they rule another way another time.
Well, Goodell says we had several Hall of Fame players in the NFL office just 2 weeks ago, several coaches and officials, and we spent 3 hours. We looked through 150 different plays and tried to look for what it is we think should be a catch and then what we think the rules should be to make sure that it is deemed a catch on the field. We have some very good ideas that we're going to submit to the competition committee. There will be a lot of focus on, like we stated, going to the ground, which I think has been a part of the confusion for everyone with respect to that rule. And I think we have a great opportunity here to get this rule right. Now, one of the things that I am very happy that Goodell has said is he wants to start back. He doesn't want to add to the rule. He doesn't want to subtract from the rule. He wants to literally get rid of the rule, period, start from the beginning, and look at it fundamentally. What do we fundamentally state is a catch? I like the aspect in the direction he wants. Instead of making things more confusing than he is, just get rid of it and then bring up a whole new rule.
It needs to be organic, if you will. However, the one thing that I do kind of find humorous on this, I think Goodell could easily take care of this, define what a catch is. However, what do all great CEOs do? They form committees. Yes, let's have a committee.
Well, and he could take care of it, but he gets paid the money to do what the owners want, and if he does exactly what the owners want, they're happy, but then the players aren't happy. So you can't really go. So I can understand the committee. Hey, let people get paid by being on the committee. That's just more money the NFL's just throwing around.
Don't take away my cynicism, damn it.
He also talked about replay, and that the replays this season were reduced in time, but there was more
Really?
of them.
They were reduced in time. It didn't seem that way.
No, it didn't. And remember, last year, going into the season this past year, what was the biggest thing? Stoppages.
Well, shortening the
momentum
game.
swingers.
Shortening the game.
Shortening the game. And it didn't go that way this year. It flowed longer. I mean, it really mattered because some of these reviews were 5 minutes long, and it was a very simple review they could have done, or a replay.
I mean, you look at it and 30 seconds later, you're saying, hey, I know what the answer to this is, or whether it's a catch or not a catch. But it's really bad when they go to commercial to give them a chance to try and work out whatever the issue is with the play, or make a proper decision on it, and you come back and they're still under the hood trying to figure out what's going on with the replay, when every fan sitting at the stadium can look at the Jumbotron and tell you whether the call was right or wrong. They're just it seems like they're dragging their feet. They're going way too far out of their way to make the correct call when it's an obvious call on the field.
It's hard watching sometimes because the momentum gets in it, and you're watching, and all of a sudden you have to go to timeout. And I mean, the one thing I can tell you,
it takes the momentum away from teams.
I can tell you who's happy about it, though. It's those
the advertisers?
It's those retired officials on the networks being able to put in their 5-minute spiel of what they think the ruling on the field should be.
Their quote-unquote 15 minutes.
Exactly. So Goodell was also asked a huge question in the light of Fox's new 5-year, over $3.2 billion deal to host NFL's Thursday Night Football. And from what I remember, Fox is having to pay $660 million a year. Goodell was asked about the injury rate, because this year a lot of players are very tired and fed up with Thursday night games. One in particular, Richard Sherman, who was injured this year in a Thursday night football game. Now, Goodell said, to respond to the statistical aspect that you raised, out of these last 5 years, where we've kept the sophisticated statistics that we have in injury data, only this year showed a light uptick, which was not even statistically significant. So if you take it over any period of time over that 5 years, the injury rate is lower. So we do not think that that's something to overreact to. So what do you think? Do you think he's just spilling the owner's lines? Because that's just buku money. They're not stopping Thursday Night Football. That is a huge cut in money. The players need to realize NFL's not cutting Thursday Night Football. They're not.
No,
it's
too
a
much
cash
of
cow.
it's too much of a revenue generator. The funny thing about this is if you look at this contract, yes, it's a 5-year deal with Fox. However, when's the CBA end? In 4 years.
Yes.
So they made this deal and they already got their cut. So it's like they're basically figuring, look, by the time we were going to have a new CBA that's going to basically fall under this, so how much of the revenue if Thursday Night Football is basically extended after 5 years, how much of this revenue is the players union going to be looking at going, hey, yeah, we got screwed this last CBA. You need to start coughing up a little more money here. Mo money, mo money.
Well, I agree with that, but the only way that's going to happen is if the NFL players right now save up their money.
I think that's
the reason why they got hosed in the past CBA
is because of DeMaurice Smith.
They were not ready for a stoppage. They weren't finding none of the players were not the superstars, because the superstars got the money. But you're looking at the lower-end veterans. You're looking at the lower-end rookies.
Your meat and potatoes guys.
Your meat and potatoes guys, they were not ready for a holdout. That's why the president of the Players Association, came out a few months ago, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and said, start saving your money. Because he wants to be able to look at the NFL and say, we're not stepping down. We want this, this, and this. I still don't think, even with the new CBA, I don't see NFL Thursday Night Football going away.
I don't see it going away either, and this is going to be another great little debate conversation, because this is coming up. This is something that the players are going to have to take into consideration. But in the same light, I'd have to go back and review, but the NFL Players Association did not do very well in the last CBA, and I think they need to get rid of. They should have gotten rid of DeMaurice Smith and gotten somebody else, because DeMaurice Smith tends to be more in the. I don't want to say he's pro league, as opposed to pro players, because he is definitely pro players, but there just seems some kind of disconnect there between the players and him, and I just don't see him being the guy to lead the NFL players to what they really need.
Jerry Richardson, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, is going through an investigation at the moment for sexual misconduct. He has relinquished ownership right now to an interim owner, and there's been question of a relocation of the Carolina Panthers. Goodell said any franchise relocation is subject to a 3/4 vote. I think all of us and the owners believe Carolina is a great market. It's a market we like to stay in, and I hope the franchise owner that eventually selected will have that view. This question was asked, and it's an honest question. I mean, another owner's coming in. That's it's understandable.
It's a great market.
I don't think it's realistic. I don't think anybody that comes in and buys the Carolina Panthers would move them. They're buying because it's the Carolina Panthers. It's a great market.
They got a great fan base too, and
Yes,
plus
they do.
You're not drawing from just one state. It's kind of like, I hate to bring it up, but New England draws from the New England area, whereas Carolina, hence the name Carolina, they draw from South Carolina, they draw from North Carolina, and all those little regions around there. They even draw some from eastern Tennessee.
But it's a huge military
Absolutely.
area, too. You got Fort Bragg. So you've got people coming from all over the country who may have their normal team. But when it comes to local, because they're stationed at Bragg,
they watch Carolina because it's the local game. It's a game they know will always be on.
It also gives you a chance to go see your team when they come to play.
Exactly.
And you also got Jackson down in South Carolina, and you got bases in Virginia to.
Yep.
So you got a really good market there to draw from.
So Carolina Panthers fans, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Now, the one thing that, as far as Jerry Richardson goes, he's getting out of this actually pretty light. He's going to wind up making a ton of money off the sale of this team, but yet his malfeasance in these sexual advances that he's been making, he's going to the league can't fine him, they can't punish him, they can't suspend him. He's going to wind up making his money, taking off fat pockets, and the league is not going to be able to do diddly squat to him, and he's going to wind up making all this money. And it's fairly well reputed that he did commit some of these sexual harassment things, but can't say that he's guilty of it because he's not gone to court over it.
So one rule change that I have loved extremely well this season was the new lax rules on player celebrations. All the ones I've really seen this year were great. They were done with class. The whole team choreographed it. It was beautiful. There were only 4 penalties the entire season for that drew a flag for excessive celebration. 2 of those penalties were by the Giants alone, and that was in the first 3 weeks of the season. It was by tight end Evan Ingram, who grabbed his crotch in a Michael Jackson-type dance. And then in week 2, in the Giants' home opener against the Lions, and that was Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. pretending to pee like a dog in the end zone. So besides those, the NFL has shown, hey, wait a second. We can bring this back. It's fun to watch this celebration. The fans get into the celebration. When you're at home and you watch your team celebrate like that again, it just gets you more and more riled up.
Absolutely.
Thinking, what are they going to do next? Torrey Smith, who has expressed his unhappiness with Colin Kaepernick still not having an NFL job, got his answer from Goodell. He said, quote, "I've been very clear on this before, that all the clubs individually have to make their own decisions about who's on the roster and who's not on the roster. Colin has filed a grievance, so I'm not going to specifically talk about that case." He also added, "We as a league do not get involved with that in any way, so I don't anticipate that in any way." I agree with him. I don't think the NFL office has anything to do with who is not on the roster.
Since when is the NFL office the one who signs a player to a team?
Exactly.
It's not. It's the individual team's right to sign who they wish to have on their roster. If they don't want you on their roster, trust me, they will let you know they don't want you on there. If they want you there, you're going to be on there.
And again, it is a business decision. It is an individual ownership decision on whether or not a player gets hired or not.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to, say, work for Google, you can't walk into Google and say, "Hey, I'm here. Hire me. You need to hire me right now. You don't have a choice. You have to hire me at this salary, and I need to be in your offices doing whatever." It doesn't work that way. You can't walk into any company and just demand to be hired. You have to go through a process. If you meet the criteria, or if you don't meet the criteria, they're going to let you know one way or another. So if they want your services, they will get your services.
Ferocious Phil, are you ready? Are you ready to do what all the listeners have been waiting for us to do? And that is to talk Super Bowl 52.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
All right. So if you've been living under a rock, I will let you know what is going on this Sunday, February 4th. And that is the 52nd Super Bowl being played at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota. And the teams will be the New England Patriots, while the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be playing the away team. This is going to be a very, very fun matchup. Both the records are 13-3. The Patriots ended first in the AFC East Division, and Philadelphia ended up first in the NFC East Division. So they both won their East Divisions. They both had the same record. Let's see.
Both number one seeds in the conferences.
Both number one seeds. Points for New England. They were number 2 for points for, and 5th in points against. Philadelphia was 3rd in points for and 4th in points against. These two teams, just off their records, match up very well together.
And that's why I think it's going to be a very close game. It's going to be a lot closer than people think it's going to be. It's not going to be a runaway for New England in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's not. And if you even look at their defense alignment, they both play a 4-3.
Yes, they do. But I still believe that Philadelphia has a slightly better defense than New England does, and that's going to be an interesting aspect of the game.
It is. One thing I would like to discuss a little bit is the injuries that come into the season and that it came into that's affected this game. The biggest one, of course, would have to be the fact that Nick Foles is playing for Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz went down with a torn ACL in his left knee. Which week was that?
He went out
14?
It was week 14 when he went down, and he missed the last 3 games of the season.
And Nick Foles has come in. Now, to talk about Nick Foles real quick, for one, he's actually coming off of a rib injury. He is stated he is playing, but he is coming off of a rib injury, which for a quarterback is kind of a big deal with the throwing motion and the torso. And but I have faith in Foles. I believe he can do it. I've always stated that I don't believe Foles can be that consistent 16-game starting quarterback winner. But I think if he has a short season, I think he can have spurts of success.
I think Foles could start for a number of teams in the NFL as it is right now. And as far as his ribs go, he's had 2 weeks to let those heal up, and he's listed as probable. So it's essentially right now it's just it's more along the lines of a nagging minor injury. It has to be listed on the report. He's probably, unless he takes a serious shot in the ribs, and he's going to be wearing a flak jacket, so he's going to be covered as far as that goes. He should be fine. The other injury for Philadelphia that you got to be kind of concerned with, and I know they're giving him a ton of fluids and doing all the right things, but Timmy Jernigan, the defensive tackle for the Eagles, you're talking about one of the 2 fire plugs you got for the Philadelphia front 4. And, Fletcher Cox, he's a little banged up, but once again, just a little minor calf injury. He should be fine. If those two guys, are going to be coming in there, they're going to need to be as healthy as they can get as far as stopping the New England running game, plugging the middle, and getting a little pressure come time to pass.
I agree. Let's look on the other side of the ball. Injury-wise, when it comes to the Patriots, you have Edelman. Edelman went down with ACL. Another big one, Martellus Bennett went down with a shoulder injury.
He actually came to them. He came to them beat up, though.
Oh, he did. He absolutely did. I remember there was controversy that he knew he was broken and he just wanted out of Green Bay, so...
And it was amazing that he actually played the first game for New England and did fairly well, but that
Yes.
was also during the time when Gronkowski was out at that point.
Well, speaking of Gronkowski, he is cleared to play in the Super Bowl, but he's coming off a concussion protocol. I don't really see it as a big issue as long as he's on the field. Brady has got a huge target. I mean, really, when you look at it, nobody has been greater than Gronkowski.
Well, Gronkowski and Brady have a definite rapport.
Oh, yeah.
And the big thing is can the Eagles, the Eagles are going to have to assign somebody to basically cover Gronkowski, and they've not been great at doing that this year. However, I think you're going to wind up seeing a lot of Malcolm Jenkins, the Pro Bowl safety for the Eagles, matched up on Gronkowski a lot in the Super Bowl. And if Jenkins can do something to slow down Gronkowski, I don't know that you can necessarily stop him. I mean, the guy gets open. But you're going to have to assign one player to take on Gronkowski, so you're going to free up either another defensive back or linebacker to drop back into coverage and go after one of the multiple receivers that the Patriots have.
Also, what helps disrupt Brady and the Patriots' flow is pressure. If you can get that pressure on him, it's great. One of the guys I've been looking at that can really get in there is Brandon Graham, the 29-year-old defensive end. He's leading the team with 9.5 sacks. The man can get to the quarterback. Anytime you get close to 10 sacks, double digits, that you're having a great year. When you're able to get to the quarterback that many times, you're having a great year. And as we've seen when it comes to Brady, if he gets those pressures or he gets those hits even after he throws the ball, he doesn't like it. He gets extremely agitated. An agitated Tom Brady is a faulty Tom Brady.
It can also come back to bite you in the backside, too. Because angry Tom Brady can also come back and light you up like we saw last year in the Super Bowl. And make your day very miserable. Now, the other, you were talking about putting pressure on Brady. You got to look at Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Honestly, I'm going to be curious as to how much pressure he really puts on, because Schwartz is known to like to rush 4 guys and drop 7 in coverage. And that's not to say the Eagles have players on their defense that are more than capable of reading a play and knowing whether it's a run or a pass. But when it comes to passing downs, I think you're going to only see like maybe about 25% of the time you're going to see Schwartz put pressure, or put a blitz on Brady. I think he's going to allow his tackles and ends to do their thing, possibly maybe run some zone blitzes, drop a defensive end back into coverage and bring a linebacker. But I don't think there's going to be as much blitzing as people would probably like to see on Brady.
I don't think so either. One of the big issues though is corrections. Making corrections. When you're playing New England, you can't make minor corrections. You've got to go look at what's going on during halftime, and you've got to make corrections on everything the Patriots defense and offense has done, because I can guarantee you they're making corrections. And every game, I have to say, one of the best things the Patriots do is making corrections. You look at the beginning of this season. Their defense was, we were looking at their defense being, wow, they're atrocious. I don't even know if they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. Well, guess what?
They made
the adjustments. In order to beat the Patriots, you have to make extraordinarily fantastic corrections. You cannot make minor ones. You have got to match them. Offensively, Philly runs more of that running back by committee, don't they?
Well, they have their 2 main backs. They have LeGarrette Blount, who's basically your hammer. He's going to come in there and just He's going to run between the tackles, and if you're in his way, he's going to try and run you over. And then you got Jay Ajayi, who's not afraid to make contact. I think the big thing with Ajayi is he tends to dance a little bit when he gets in the hole, but once he decides to make a cut or spin, you better watch out, because I mean he'll run that ball right down your throat.
Well, I agree with that, because if you look, LeGarrette Blount on this season, on 173 attempts, he went for 766 yards, 2 touchdowns. His longest run was 68. Then second, you have Jay Ajayi. On 70 attempts, he has 408 with only 1 touchdown, but his longest run happened to be 71 yards. These two guys can also receive. Ajayi on 14 targets has received 8, and Blunt is 100% with on 8 targets he's received 8 of them, 450 yards, and Ajayi for 91 yards. So they can those you got running backs that can catch the ball. But then let's go in the air. Let's talk about in the air.
Well, you also got Corey Clement, who's pretty good at coming out of the backfield on swing passes and screens, too.
You do. He is 10 of 15 for 123 yards, which is a catching percentage of 66%.
But he's got more touchdowns than Blunt or Ajayi.
Yes. Yes, he does. Then when you actually look at receivers, you've got leading the way Zach Ertz, the tight end, with 824 yards on 74 receptions, targeted 110 times. Then in second place, you've got Alshon Jeffrey, former Bear, with 789 yards on 57 receptions out of 120 targets.
Don't forget Aguilar.
You got Aguilar with 768 yards off of 62 receptions, being targeted 95 times.
And he was kind of an unsung hero for him. They weren't even sure what they were going to do with him at the start of the season. He came on and kind of proved himself to be that stretch the field kind of guy. He's actually performed very well this year.
And he's only 24 years old.
Oh, he's a young guy. He's only been in the league, I think, 2 or 3 years, or he's going to be going into his 3rd year. And if I remember correctly, he came out of USC. He was actually thought of as a return specialist, and he still is. He does a lot of the returns for Philadelphia too. But Aguilar's got a very healthy upside in the near future.
And then, of course, you go to the leader of that offense in Nick Foles. This year, he only has 537, but he only started 3 games.
Yeah, and he also he threw for 8 touchdowns and only 2 picks.
Yes.
And he has not thrown an interception in the playoffs.
I do have faith in Nick Foles. I doubted him for a little while, but with what he did to Minnesota's defense was incredible. He carved them up. There's no understating how he just destroyed the Vikings D.
If I remember correctly, his passer rating in the Minnesota game, I believe, was 117, which is a very nice quarterback rating. You take 117 all day long during the season.
Yes, so that's the quarterback and the offense for what New England's defense is going to be facing. Now let's talk a little bit about what the Eagles' defense will be facing. I would like to start by saying, in no way am I a fan of Brady.
But you got to respect him, unfortunately.
I respect him extremely well. I do believe he's the GOAT. Y'all can disagree with me because you don't like him personally or anything like that, but if you look statistically, he is the GOAT. I just want to go into what he's done this year. At the age of 40, he attempted 581 passes. He completed 385. So he's over 50% at a 66.3 completion rate. He had 4,572 yards, 32 touchdowns, with only 8 interceptions. His longest reception was, or longest throw, I should say, was 64 yards. Yards per game, 286.1. QBR of 70.2. Now, he did get sacked 35 times for a total of 201 yards. That's kind of rough, but he's hanging in the pocket a lot more. He's getting older. He's not, well, he never really did scramble, but you don't really see him scrambling now. And that offensive line isn't what it used to be, so a lot more has been getting through. But at the age of 40, his numbers, I thought he was going to start falling off the cliff. But, I mean, he may be at the cliff, but he's still looking down. So you've got him, great quarterback, and then you look at his targets. One of the biggest targets that really surprises me is they also do running back by committee, though. They don't really have a solid one. They kind of go back and forth. You got Dion Lewis, who had almost hit 1,000 yards this year with 896 yards on 180 attempts with 6 touchdowns. Mike Gillespie, right behind him with 5 touchdowns on 383 yards on 104 attempts. Here's what's intriguing about this. Then you've got James White. He's got 171 yards on 43 attempts with no touchdowns, but he's got 429 receiving yards on 56 receptions while being targeted 72 times. As a running back, targeted 72 times with 3 touchdowns. So you've got a running back in James White that can tease people. He didn't have a huge amount of rushing yards, but he had close to 200. So you've got him. You know the man can do something with the ball, running with it.
You left out one guy, too, though. Don't forget Rex Burkhead.
You do have Burkhead, who had 264 yards on 64 attempts.
Burkhead was a beast coming out of the backfield, catching the ball.
He did. 254 yards on 30 receptions.
How many touchdowns?
3. So he tied with James White, but he was 83% complete catch. 36 targets, caught 30 of them. So Brady has a lot of flexibility in just the backfield alone. Then let's take a look at their wide receiving core. You got Brandon Cooks, who destroyed Boye in the championship game. Destroyed Boye, who's getting paid $63 million, just made him a laughing stock.
I think a couple of those calls were questionable.
I'm not saying that. I kind of agree, but all the calls always go to the Patriots anyway. But Brandon Cooks had 1,082 yards on 65 receptions for 114 targets.
Well, Brady had no problem spreading the ball out because you had Brandon Cooks. You also had Chris Hogan.
Yeah, Chris Hogan, he had 439 yards on the year.
And don't forget one of Brady's favorite targets when there's nobody else there.
You got Rob Gronkowski.
Amendola. Amendola is
you got
Brady's,
Amendola, yes.
like, security blanket. Everyone thinks that Gronkowski is. Amendola is the guy that Brady will look for when all's lost. Watch him go to Amendola, and he will light it up.
He will, but I still say Gronkowski's his Care Bear. Gronkowski had 1,084 yards on 69 receptions, targeted 105. Amendola may be his safety net on 86 targets. He caught 61 for 659 yards.
Yeah,
when you've got a tight end who's putting up same numbers that the number one wide receiver on the team is putting up, You've got a dangerous offense.
Plus 8 touchdowns. He scored 8 touchdowns. Yes. Gronkowski did.
Yes.
And the point I was trying to make about
scored 7.
The point I was trying to make though about Amendola is the guy when the Patriots are say 3rd and 8,
yes.
3rd and 12.
Yes, he's the clutch.
When they need those 12 yards or those 8 yards to make a first down on on 3rd down. Amendola is going to be the guy who miraculously gets open. He's the guy that everyone forgets about, and he just like pops up and gets him a first down.
Yes, he's Houston fans would understand this. He's the Robert Ory of the Patriots. In other words, if you've got 3 seconds left on that clock and you're down by 3, who are you giving the ball to? For Houston Rockets, it was Robert Ory.
And the great thing about Amendola is he still returns punts and kicks.
Yes, he does.
Now, the interesting thing next year, see, a guy that they traded for this year, and I think he really just needs to be coached up. New England traded at the beginning of the year for a receiver named Philip Dorsett. The kid is greased lightning. The guy is like lightning in a bottle. If they can figure out a way to develop this guy, and they're gonna have an insane deep threat next year.
Dorsett is a hell of a player, and I don't know why the Colts decided to.
They gave up on him.
Go through and do that. Well, the whole Colts. That's a whole nother show. Colts is a whole
and
nother
the Colts
show.
are the Colts. So.
All right. So before we get into our picks, because it is about to be coming of that time. So out of both teams, Phil, I want to know your unknown. Out of the unknowns playing for both teams, I want to know from either team who you think is going to be the surprise player of the game. Ooh. So I'm not talking like you can't pick LeGarrette Blount. You can't pick Zach Ertz. You can't pick Deion Lewis or Gronkowski. Or even Ajay. He started. He's known. I want somebody you think is going to step up. Like me, for one, he's an older guy, older gentleman, but I think he could be the tight end that's really looked at. And I'm going to say Brent Selleck. He's an older tight end. He's older than Ertz. Ertz, is going to be covered quite well. I say Selleck has a chance of being that guy on the Eagles that surprises everybody in their favor.
That's entirely possible. I think another guy to look at is going to be Aguilar. I think Aguilar has the potential to burn New England. And he's one of these guys he's kind of like an Amendola where he will make that clutch catch you aren't expecting.
Yeah, but
all of a sudden it's there.
I'm going to have to probably disqualify that one because the man did have 8 touchdowns on 768 yards. He's a pretty big cog in that starting defense, or that starting offense, I should say.
Well, the other guy I think you could probably look at too is Corey Clement. He could be one of these guys that you're gonna see coming out of the backfield making some clutch catches and maybe making that first down that propels Philadelphia over. I think Philadelphia's defense matches up better with New England's offense than New England's defense matches up with Philadelphia's offense. And I think Philadelphia has the potential to give New England a few headaches. And for that matter, in the same light, you're going to have New England. They've had 2 weeks to prep for this game. Belichick's not an idiot, and he's going to have them ready for it.
And on the other side of the ball, I'm actually going to go defense. I say Butler has a hell of a game again.
I got to disqualify.
You're going to disqualify my Butler?
Yeah, too well known. If I was going to say somebody on New England, as far as offensively, if we're going to stick offensively, I think...
No, it's your pick. You can go defense or offense.
I say watch out for Amendola. And, yeah, he's not going to be one of the starters. Amendola is going to be that guy that comes in and he's going to all of a sudden show up and it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to stick with my defense and I'm going to go Harmon. Why Harmon?
I'm going to go Harmon. You've got Foles. Foles is good, but Foles can also, like I said, he can be inconsistent. Harmon has on the year 4 interceptions. If the game comes down to the air, I think he can cut it off. I think Harmon has a chance to disrupt the air. He's running. I mean, he doesn't have any sacks, but of course he's a defensive back anyway. He does have 16 tackles with 7 assists. He also has 7 forced fumbles. So the man can disrupt. And Nick Foles is no Carson Wentz. He is no Tom Brady. I could say when it comes to the Patriots side, I say the miraculous point is their defense. Because Brady's going to come out with some, if they need to, miracle or whatever. But it's the defense that I think is going to surprise. So that's my pick for my two unknowns to get their name out there.
Well, I think on the Eagles side, as far as defensively, keep your eyes on Malcolm Jenkins and watch that matchup with Gronkowski.
Yep. All right. So, Phil, what's your prediction? Winner, and points.
Okay. In a very close, tight, contested game. Head's telling me New England, heart's saying Philadelphia. Just looking at some of the potential factors that could go into this. Very tight game, 24-21, a complete opposite of Super Bowl 39. Philadelphia takes.
All right, so you heard it. I'm going to go close game, but I'm going to go a little bit higher score. I'm going to first state this. I believe Philly's going to win. I think the Patriots right now are getting cocky. If you look at Media Day with Bill Belichick, he was smiling more than I've ever seen the man smile. He was joking in the presser. You had Brady kind of joking and all that. I think they're a little cockier this year than they have been any other year.
Wait, Belichick was joking?
Yes, he was.
Oh, my God.
And he was smiling.
Did hell freeze over?
He either had too much Xanax or he was actually enjoying his time. So either way, I think they're a little cocky.
Well, Belichick was sitting on the court for the Minnesota-Boston game last night.
And he was grinning from ear to ear. You never see that man grin. So I'm going to say Philly wins, but I'm going 34-30. I think it's more of a shootout. So that's my pick. 34-30.
If it comes
Eagles.
down to defense, Philly. If it comes down to defense, it's going to be Philly.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed our Super Bowl special. Listen to us again next week as we talk about what happened in the Super Bowl. We're going to talk a little bit more about the official start of off-season, and we're going to start maybe dabbling in a little bit of the NFL draft.
And free agency coming up. Plus, we got the combine, too.
Plus, we do have the combine and free agency because free agency is about to flow.
Start of the league year, March 14th. Combine, I believe, is the 4th through 7th.
So, on behalf of Ferocious Phil, I am the good old JR. We want to thank you for listening.
Hooah!